Here's the thing, though, Nelson. There's a dangerous first topic that we want to discuss here. Because if you've seen my Twitter, something I've actually think is one of the focal points of this whole world is everyone I was talking to from my shows, from experts I respect, commentators, everyone's take coming into Worlds, as far as I'm aware, minus I think LS, was FPX is the unofficial #1 team in the world. They have the best player in the world in Doinby. I mean, that was mainly a Peter Don one, but I know some people agreed. And they are the favourite to win Worlds because they have the team to do it, they have the shot call to do it. And basically, people were just sort of like hand waving the LPL files like that. That was just a bad day. Or like, RNG has the clutch factor, or the meta was different, and IDG, the bad day. And basically, I made this comment before Worlds, so I basically said, this is going to be the most overrated #1 team to ever go to Worlds because they've won nothing. Like, they actually haven't shown you that they're like a dominant force. Now, yeah, in the regular seasons, they were great. They were in all the finals. Yeah, sure. So I want to get your take. Did you come into Worlds thinking FPX was like the clear-cut favourite? Where did you have them?
Then I don't have like a take because, all I can say is I can make like the most educated guess on what's going on in FPX. And basically, probably after spring finals, they were, I would say, like no longer a team.
So basically, everyone that the Western people said was the #1 team wasn't even a team. You failed even the basic fucking premise. Now, what do you mean by that, though? You think it rattled them in some way that they didn't win that final?
They had severe internal strife. I mean, they benched Nuggery for a while, right?
Yeah, that was the thing.
He's being cagey because he knows the secret.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you a different question. Are you good friends with Steak?
Yeah, I worked with him.
Okay, great. Anyway, continue.
And known him for many years. Basically after spring finals, like they lost the finals in. I would say like in a matchup where I think they were favored to win, rightfully so, because they were like very dominant. And of course, you can see in summer, right? Like there are roster changes. Doesn't matter whether it's like top lane or it's jungle. And the jungle issue has been around for, I would say, almost 2 years.
Maybe you can talk about that then, because there's another thing where I can just tell the Westerners who don't watch LPL. Dude, the Westerners who don't watch LPL act like from the second Season 9 Worlds ended, Tian's just been like a god jungler the whole time. It's like, I don't think you've been watching, dude. Like, he's definitely had his massive ups and downs in the LPL.
Yeah, definitely, right? I mean, he was even like benched for Bo, who unfortunately got banned for match fixing.
We know the match fixing, yeah, of course.
Yeah, but it's like, I mean, he had his issues like immediately after they won Worlds. Like the season after, they didn't do anything. The summer, the next year, yeah, they were losing to my team in the LPL, and it was a very, I would say like it's like one of the usual issues which players face in LPL, like maybe especially after they win like a big tournament. I would say like the general issue is like most orgs, maybe if you made it to Worlds and they think you're a good player, they would try to renew your contract, right?
Yes, of course.
Like I mean, just imagine that. For example, Fnatic. Let's just say, Hill is saying he just renewed his contract. But what if they just won Worlds? Then you're gonna feel you're gonna feel cheated. And I think
he would feel like I could go elsewhere for more money, right?
Yeah, for sure. And
this also famous just generally in Chinese esports culture. There is a famous meme, it's real though, in Dota 2, that if a Chinese team wins Worlds, conveniently 1 or 2 players retire and then magically come back 6 months later, because it's a way you just break your contract. For a while you do nothing, and as Nelson says, you just go with somewhere else. You either join different players you want to play with, or you just get paid like a motherfucker. Because as we're saying here, unfortunately, you feel like, now, as you say, like my contract value before I win Worlds and after, it could be so different, right?
Yeah, for sure. And of course, right, like, I mean, of course, he had his own medical issues, whether it's like jungle or support. Both of them had like their own medical issues. Because I know that Chris, like early parts of the season, he was like hospitalized and couldn't play some games, which was quite serious. But I think the general consensus for Tian after he won Worlds was that basically his mechanics deteriorated a lot, and when they changed top laners, like they constantly changed top laners from Khan to Nuggery, the communication wasn't there, and he was not able to like cover them.
By the way, I want to ask on that take, since I asked you on the last show we did about the fluency of Tarzan, because you were saying that he actually is like, listen, not fluent in the sense that he can speak like an adult, but he actually was like surprisingly done a lot of work in learning Chinese. What is Naguri at in like that level?
Oh, I mean, I'm not so sure, so I can't really comment.
Okay. Fair enough.
But I know that in spring he couldn't understand.
It would be very surprising if he could, because Chinese is not really taught in Korean schools very frequently compared to English. So most Koreans speak better English than they do Chinese. And so unless he was studying Chinese prior to having gone to China, which is unlikely, I would say, he's only had probably like 9 or 10 months of practice in Chinese, and it's quite a different language than Korean, even though they have some of the same words.
Dude, that part is always skipped over by people. I don't downplay Doinby at all. It's the other way around. I think people underrate what he does. He works with players who sometimes don't speak his fucking language and wins worlds. I mean, obviously he technically can speak Korean to them, but not everyone in the team could communicate. Like, that means some of the players... Dude, imagine being in a team where the jungler can't speak the same language as the top laner. Has anyone watched the meta for the last 3 years? How's that going to work? In the current game for last year, you fucking ganked top immediately at the beginning of the game. Like, this is madness. The actual fact they could win is incredible, but it also means that when you're having a bad period, I could see how it could all spiral and go completely to shit. Makes sense. It's the same with IG. Everyone always, dude, used to be so confused that IG was having problems. It should be expected they had problems. What's amazing is that they could have times where they didn't have problems and carry with 2 Koreans and a bunch of Chinese players. That's incredible. You got it the wrong way around, guys. It's like that joke where when the lion in the circus goes crazy and kills everyone. No, that's actually a normal lion behavior. It's when he sat on a fucking tricycle doing a little trick. That's weird. That's not normal. You've got it. You've got your hierarchy of values the wrong way around. What do you think, Nelson? Do you know about lions as well as that top secret? Can you not tell me about why the lion goes crazy? Is it not Suning? Is it? We thought that was a reference to Suning and what Huafeng did. Well, come on, man.
Let me translate Nelson, who doesn't want to give anything up here.
Okay, fucking hell.
The mental was boom on FPX. It's more depressing because you feel like if you actually look at this roster. So, as he said, Tian deteriorated since his world championship. And I think people who pay attention to international competition will remember that Tian and Crisp were probably the best players on FPX when they actually won worlds. So you kind of, in your mind, are expecting them to be better if you haven't been watching any of the LPL matches since that world's victory, right? And so... when you also have seen Nuguri last year, you have huge expectations of him. On paper, this is an upgraded roster, you would say, over Khan. Obviously, communication issues aside, but also this was a great meta for FPX. This is just a wonderful meta for them. Doinby, the hype around him, why people were putting him as kind of like the best player coming into the World Championship, was that he had vastly expanded his champion pool, where he was now elite on a number of like kind of typical Doinby picks from a few years ago. He looked extremely good coming in. And if you just think about the meta that's developed, it's going to be a top lane meta. Well, thank God we have maybe the best top laner in the world, or at least used to be in Nuguri, right? If you think that Tian is going to be up there, then you think, the Doinby-Tian synergy is going to be really strong. Look how strong the top half of the map is. Doinby has dimensionalized his play style. And not only that, but he doesn't even really have to, because this meta actually suits many of the kind of classic Doinby roaming champions. If you look at T1 is actually playing a very, I would say, FPX theoretical style right now, where they're playing a lot through Kana. Faker, right now, as of the group stage, has, out of all mid laners that have played at groups, he has the lowest percentage of gold compared to his team. Faker is playing a low economy mid lane style. He's playing mostly Twisted Fate. He played half his games on Twisted Fate, and he's been playing in the side lanes and playing more of a supportive, like pick oriented map pressure style. So if anything, like I would have expected T1 and FPX to look really, really similar in this meta, and yet it was a complete and total failure from FPX, whereas like T1 is actually doing like a better FPX impersonation than FPX, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think like this tournament, they had many issues, especially the second round robin. I thought they did like average, they did fine on the first round robin. They didn't deserve to win some games, but I think they looked like against C9, right?
Game they should have lost, like straight up.
Yeah, they should have lost, but they were in a position where if Cloud9 makes a mistake, they could win. And then I think against Damwon, they looked okay actually the first time they played.
Yep.
But I think week 2, they were like in full panic mode, because I'm pretty sure all the Chinese teams know that if you don't ban, I mean, you just need to ban TF, because that is the only champion which the Western teams can use to contest you. Like especially early on, especially in the early game, where I think that's the biggest weakness for Western teams in terms of like laning and how they play out the sequences and how the meta is. Where if any of the Enchanter supports are up in the draft and someone picks it, you would like to follow, or you like pick something else to engage, right? But if that happens, then your top lane is isolated, and then TF exerts so much pressure where you can just pressure both side lanes at the same time the moment he goes missing. And I think they just forgot. I mean, they forgot, or they just didn't believe in like banning TF.
You don't think maybe in scrims they just dealt with it and they were like, we can let it through. It's an overrated pick or something.
Yeah, I mean, I heard differing takes, right, from different teams. Some teams are
everything I've heard, by the way. This is why I actually found some of the results surprising. Is based on the rumors behind the scenes. Everyone was saying all the Western teams getting dumpstered, and like no one had a chance against the Asian teams.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's what I heard as well. But I think scrims can show like, you know, the peak or the potential of the team, but on stage most of the time it's definitely different. It's a slower game.
Do you think that the LPL as a region, because if we look historically, they're another region like NA where the number one seed has a terrible record at Worlds. Like, except the problem is, Nelson, they're supposed to be among the favourites to win Worlds. If you go look at the number one seeds from LPL, it's amazing how many times they just, not necessarily funk the groups, but they just don't make an impact on being a potential champion. Do you think like the obvious question is like, do you think they get affected by pressure of being a favourite?
I think there's pressure for sure, because I remember the year which FPX won Worlds, but they started the group like 2-1, but they could have went like 0-2, 0-3, you know.
Oh, it's dodgy as fuck, yeah.
Yeah. The players were feeling the pressure for sure, even though they won the game. Like they lost one game and they just felt the pressure already, because like first they lost to an J team, and then they were supposed to get first, or they were supposed to contend for the title, but they just screwed up in the first step, you know. And I know the whole team was under pressure and trying like not to choke in the second half of groups. And yeah, I mean, for most LPL teams, especially those which are not as experienced in terms of like international.
Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.